Well, hello everyone. You have right here, shown right here, talk about for the Toal Solar Eclipse right here. And a lot of times it seems like is this toward it whenever you're going to be looking at, staring directly at the sun right here. And you see right here is this forms like a source of a ring right here. And you're thinking is toward, okay, yeah, a spot in the sky it is. And a lot of times you're always 102 is toward it, yeah, would that be southeast or would that be the direction northeast or coming from the west or somewhere like that. And a lot of times whenever you do think about that, then you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, by what direction do you think that that's coming from? And so if this right here was supposed to be any sort of class assignment for sure, you would maybe think that you would need to write a paper about that, talking about is this toward it, yeah, if you do are able to see an eclipse that you are able to write a paper about that and knowing about from what direction that was coming from right there. But still that but you see right here of talking about is that whenever it comes to the solar eclipse right here, for 2024, and you see this right here whenever it comes to looking at staring at the sun right here, and wonder toward you got the spots right here toward it, where it shows is toward it, some areas where it shows where it gets really dark, and then compared to the areas where it gets really light right here, and so that's why it seems that way toward it, looking at the sun right here, and but still, it's like whenever you're going to be looking directly at the sun right here in 102, that yeah, normally down here, around this area right here is where you would usually hear the sound of crickets. You would hear the sound of crickets, and then yeah. So it's like so each time you do think about that, then your worms is toward okay, yeah, that if you get real close right here to the sun right here, and then you can see the pattern toward it where the eclipse is having the pattern right. And so whenever you do look very closely through the camera lens, so that I think is too is toward okay, yeah, that because a lot of times that the sun is pretty large, know about from how to view it, but then of course just to be able to spot that, then 102 is to where yeah, it looks like a big hole inside the sky, and but still that on your hand too, whenever you do think about that, then you're warned toward okay, yeah, if you do get a real close up of the sun right there, and thinking it's toward okay, yeah, that it looks like a big hole in the sky right there, but then whenever like yeah, that's is whenever the ring comes back into path of totality, and but then on the other hand, that whenever you do look at the sun like that, then you're thinking it's toward okay, yeah, that is that coming from the east, or if it's coming from the northeast, or coming from the west, or what direction would that be? So each time you think about that, then you're 102 that yeah, looking at the sun right here and thinking it's toward okay, yeah, that it's they say if it's coming from the southeast or if it's coming from the northeast, coming from, and so each time you think about that the eclipse right here, and you're thinking it's toward okay, yeah, coming from the north, coming from the south, or it's facing south. It's facing south, but then it's coming from the east. So really, how do you think that you would really want to write that? Whenever it comes to writing a paper about that, about watching the eclipse, and you're thinking it's toward okay, yeah, that you want to go ahead and add in right here of like yeah, it was coming from the south, but then it was you were able to view it from the east or something like that, and so each time you do think about that, then you're 102 that why do you think anybody would really want to argue about the fact about what direction it was visible of the path of totality, and that is why it seems that way toward it whenever you look really closely right here. I'm talking about the solar eclipse right here, and you're wondering toward, okay, yeah, you got this area right here where one part of the sky where it shows darkness right here, but then you have right here I'm talking about is as to where you got this ring of fire right here, and that is why it seems that way to where that whenever you do watch the eclipse and you're thinking is toward, okay, yeah, that how often are we really going to even be paying attention to all that details about that if it's going to be the southeast or if it's southwest to where you'll be able to watch this, if you'll be path of totality. And so some places might even say that if you want to write down the direction from where you saw the eclipse, and let's just say that you were able to watch the eclipse, but then you were able to see it, come from the southeast right here. And everybody might say, well, the reason why we ask is because is to where that if you want to go ahead and maybe write, just to study the science just a little bit more, like everybody might want to know too, that you write down some of these details just because that so that way you can kind of understand a little bit more about how the eclipse works on it. So it's like, so usually between the hours of like maybe 9:45, 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 a.m., something like that, and then this is what it would look like, going through path of totality, and then whenever it was about halfway they come through the moon shadow and all that, and so that's why it seems that way, that every time you do think about that, then you want to know too is to where that you got the solar eclipse right here, and how many of us will maybe say is to where that, okay, that you need to have the glasses, just to be able to protect your eyes, but still that whenever you do watch the eclipse, by the way, that you're thinking is toward, okay, that whenever you do put the glasses on, and like everybody might even say too, that one thing that you might notice about the eclipse though is that you might even see maybe a little bit of a mirror reflection or something like that, light of say ring of fire and all, anything else, anything like that. But still, it's like whenever you do watch the eclipse, that you're thinking is toward, okay, that you got right here, so you got the eclipse, and then you got this night sky of darkness right here. But still, it's like whenever you're going to be watching the eclipse right here, and I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit more. But that whenever you do watch the eclipse, that you would probably be maybe viewing the eclipse right about at this angle right here, and so it's like every time you do think about that, then you want to know too that about you're about maybe this far away from the eclipse right here, and it's like as to where that's about what it looks like whenever you're going to be looking at it through the lens, the focal point of view of totality, and you're thinking as to where okay, that this right here is supposed to look like a hole in the sky, and like everybody might say that whenever you do look at it at an angle, that it looks like a hole in the sky right there, and think is toward okay, the sky turns dark and everything, but still that whenever you do look at it really closely though, do some of us maybe look at it as maybe like it's a black, it's an eyeball or something like that, or maybe anybody might even think too is toward it that whenever you do look at this at the eclipse right here, and but still it's like I always known as toward it that whenever you do watch an eclipse on the day of the eclipse, that don't you necessarily think as toward it that is the day whenever time stands still or something like that. Like everybody might even think too is toward that whenever you look at the eclipse, is that to kind of remind you just a little bit about what time. It's like like everybody might want to know too. That if you would actually write a paper about that, and you want to know too, then why do you think anybody would take the time to go ahead and write down on paper? It says to where yeah, coming from the northeast. And let's just say if you do write the time on there, and at the time does say something like, as of 9, as of 10:45 a.m. or something like that. So you write down the time, and you're thinking as toward it. Why do you think anybody would even pay attention to all that detail about the fact about, I don't know, I really don't even know what time this took place or whichever, really, who cares or whichever, but still. But on the other hand, that everybody might even want to know too, that the way you think about that though is that knowing as to where the times whenever the sun, when it was fully eclipsed and all that, and so really that why do you think that anybody would really keep track of all that, right there, all those details, and just to study the science just a little bit more. And everybody might say this toward it, really, is it really that hard really to tell what's going on up there in space, up there in the sky? And everybody might say that is toward it, yeah, that whenever you do write down the times from whenever you actually saw something in the sky, and people might want to know too, that hey, that whenever you do write down the times, by the way, then for sure that that's usually around the time that the Earth is rotating. By the way, in case if anybody's wondering, that about how many miles per hour is that really equal to whenever the Earth is rotating around the Earth? Then you want like yeah, whenever the sun, whenever the moon is rotating, then about how fast really is that? And like everybody might even think too, is to where, well, it's not very fast, but it's slowly. I'm like, it is rotating, but still, but whenever you do write down the times right here from whenever you do see something though, and you're thinking as toward, okay, yeah, that's usually a meaning is just to kind of study the science a little bit, and people might say is this toward, yeah, that pretty much means is toward that upon expected, or it could also mean is as toward that it's almost noon or something like that, like yeah, almost noon, or it's right around lunchtime or something like that. Normally it would be daylight, but like everybody might say that whenever you're able to get any footages of the eclipse, just like that right there, and people want to know too is toward it that yeah, these are the details that you usually see right here, and at 102 is toward yeah, you see those details right there, and I think it's toward okay, yeah, you saw the total solar eclipse, and in the path of totality, and it coming from the south to east right here at 10:45 a.m. And that is why it seems that way toward it. Whenever you do see it though, and you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, that really, why do you think anybody would pay attention to all those details? Well, for sure, it's just to kind of understand about, really for what is expected, and knowing about any photos that you're able to get whenever it comes to watching the eclipse. And but at the same time, though, that you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, that the sky turns dark, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you see right here is the path of the sun right here, but still that whenever you do watch the eclipse though, that you're also probably thinking too is toward okay, yeah, that coming from the west and then maybe coming from the east. Do you think that anybody would be talking about photographs that they were able to get, especially this photo right here was captured facing the west? This right here was northwest right here, with northeast, and then this right here is southeast right here. And So you look at those different directions, and people 102 is to where they usually sun's usually facing the south, right? But still, it's like every time you do think about that, then your 102 is to where that what do you think anybody would want to keep track of it? And like you say, yeah, well, whenever you look out your window and you actually see the sun shining, right? And a lot of times it's like, yeah, it's like like a glowing star in the sky, but there at the same time, everybody might even say too that you go ahead and write down the direction from where you saw the eclipse, because everybody might say, yeah, it's visible from space. It is visible from space, but still, that they would maybe like to know from what direction you saw it. And like everybody might say that, yeah, well, you were able to see it, but you were trying to tell from what direction where you were standing at just to be able to watch that. So to me, though, I look at it more like a guide. Like everybody might say that whenever you do get any photographs of the eclipse, that you're able to write down the details about what the direction that you were actually sent. Like, yeah, being there at the right place at the right time, you'll just be able to get that real good, that clean, clear photo. And then that's one of the reasons why that they say that just a matter of fact is as to where you go ahead and write down those details. And but still, it's like everybody might even say too that do you really think everybody might even want to know too that usually around that time is usually whenever you're getting lunch or maybe breakfast or something like that. Maybe a little bit of late breakfast or something. And 102 is toward okay, yeah, that whenever you do try to watch the eclipse and you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, you got the glasses with you and maybe any good photo gear that you're gonna have with you, and you're thinking is toward okay, yeah, that you watch the eclipse from here, but then on your hand is toward it you go ahead and look at it from an angle, and your 102 is toward it. Yeah, it's going to start gradually getting dark, and then it's going to turn light again. And so how many of us would maybe 102 that you stare at the eclipse for about 20 minutes, and let's just say that it's slowly, gradually getting darker and slowly, gradually getting lighter right here. And so that's why it seems that way to where each time you do think about it, and your 102 is to where that, yeah, I would say, for about maybe the first 10 minutes that you're going to start seeing, gradually seeing the sun starting to, yeah, starting to disappear, like it starts getting darker whenever it's in the path of totality, right? And so like everybody might 102, that, whenever you do put those glasses on, that you think is toward it. Yeah, a lot of things that you do see with those glasses on that you're not really able to get any photographs of. And like everybody say, if you don't have all the equipment ready and everything, and so that is one of the reasons why that they would say is this toward it whenever you're able to get photographs of what's going on during the time, and you're thinking is toward it. Wow, that's pretty incredible right there. And can we really tell the time just by looking at this black spot, this black hole right here? Like, oh yeah, the shadow, the moon shadow right here covering the sun. Can we really tell what time it is? And yeah, everybody might 102 this toward it. Yeah, well, whenever you do stare at the sun, like everybody would say, is to where usually it's very bright whenever you're staring at it. Whenever you're staring at the sun just like that, it's usually very bright, right? And so that's why it seems that way, that whenever there's this ring right here and you're thinking is that, okay, yeah, that's usually around the time is to where whenever you look at the eclipse right there in people 102 is to where really, what exactly does that mean whenever you're staring at this ring right here, the sun and the ring? And it's like, well, we know exactly what it means is toward it it's visible from space, and knowing that time can really tell. But still, it's like everybody might even think of this toward it. Well, really, I maybe look at that maybe just a little bit like maybe a time on New Year's Eve, is toward it whenever the eclipse does happen. Then U102 is toward it. Besides that the skies turn dark and everything, but still that. But don't we necessarily think of this toward it? There's something about that sky that maybe that, like everybody might say, that there are some things about the sky that maybe that you don't really see, every day. And one of those things, of course, is maybe going to be is toward it. You might see maybe a few clouds here and there, and but still, it's like you look up there at the clouds right here, and you're thinking is toward it, yeah, that you see things that maybe that you don't realize that could be there, and so that's one of the reasons why that people may say is this to where you try to think about that, to where that if you want to try to look at that, to where that you stare at the sun, and then you're able to see, a clear blue sky right here, and maybe 2 weeks later, then maybe you might see maybe a little lighter sky, or maybe an overcast sky or something like that. So every time you do think about that, then your 102 is to where that, yeah, that this right here, I'm like, yeah, it's like a moment in time, and so that's why it seems that way, to where that, every time you do think about that, just to study the science a little bit more, is that yeah, do you think that maybe this sky, this photograph or so, this moment in time is really telling you anything? And you're probably thinking it too, is to where that, well, really, that what it's actually telling you is that, yeah, it's going through the moon's shadow, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that do you think that maybe that's around the time that you ought to be, look back and kind of be thankful for what you do have, right? And everybody might want to know too that every time you look at the time of the eclipse and a 102 is toward it, yeah. Do you think that maybe the sun is telling us anything? One of those things is maybe going to be is toward that there's more about space to explore or something like that, but still. But on the other hand, that when we do talk about discovering anything about what you call knowing about our planets in the solar system and everything, but still that you're looking at these photographs right here, and you're thinking as toward hey, that whenever you do look at a photo right here of the eclipse, and you're thinking as toward okay, yeah, that what do you actually see whenever you do stare at the sun? And you're thinking as toward it, well, really, what I actually see is as toward it, it's actually nice to be able to look at the sun, knowing that it's not going to be, it's not too hard on the eyes and all that, and knowing about the cool, interesting photos that you're getting. Because like everybody say that your sun has been so bright here lately, it seems like, to where that you see different, reflections and shadows all the way around. But whenever you do see the eclipse, and it's like, you would see this right here, you got the reflections on it, but then you would see the shadow right here. So everybody says this, to where if you actually looked at it from an angle, then you would actually see is this, to where it looks like a hole in the sky right here. But still, it's like your 102 is to where they really, does it look like a hole in the sky? I'm like, yeah, whenever you do look at it at an angle right here, and people may 102 is to where that, yeah, you look at it from an angle, and knowing is to where that, yep, like say that, what it actually looks like now, from the southeast, it actually looks like is toward it, and like it looks a little bit like an eyeball or something, but still, everybody say, yeah. Others might even say that it looks like one of those, black peas, giant black peas, or giant black blueberries in the sky or something like that. You're covering the sun, but a lot of people would probably not really understand that very well, just because of the fact that, yeah, sometimes it's early in the morning, And they're probably thinking is toward it, yeah, well, daylight is daylight. Daylight is daylight. Sunrise is sunrise. Sunset is sunset. I've seen that before, but still, a total solar eclipse, in case if we're wondering, if we did follow the science properly, you would maybe even think too, is toward it, yeah, is really science really telling us anything? Well, of course it's telling us as toward that, yeah, there's really, there's time can tell whenever you're staring in the sky. You look up there at the sky, at the sky, you're able to see something. You're not just looking up there at the sky, but you're looking into space. And one of those things that you really are seeing is you're seeing clouds, and that you're also seeing airplanes. But still, that how many of us really even think and believe is as to where that whenever you do look up there in the sky, that space is trying to tell us something. Is as to where yeah, that it once was a star, but then whenever it's eclipsed, and then that's whenever it starts saying this where yeah, that's whenever it gets real dark, in the sky, and then it starts changing colors and all that. But how many of us would even think this toward it? Yeah, it's supposed to mean this toward it. Time stands still, and for those first few seconds to kind of look just to see is toward it exactly, what's going on during that part of the day. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.